There's a strange discomfort that creeps in when you stop. When you sit in silence with no phone in your hand, no goal to chase, no list to complete, you start to feel useless. The world has trained you to believe that motion equals meaning, that if you're not producing, fixing, or improving, you're somehow falling behind. But here's the truth that few ever realize. Most people aren't running toward success. They're running away from stillness, because stillness exposes what's real. It strips away the noise and forces you to meet the person behind the performance. When you do nothing, your mind begins to whisper things you've avoided hearing for years. And that's where the transformation begins, not in the rush, but in the rest. Norman Vincent Peale once said, "Change your thoughts, and you change your world." But how can you change your thoughts when you never stop long enough to listen to them? The reward of doing nothing is not laziness, it's renewal. It's the invisible space where creativity is born, where intuition wakes up, and where strength begins to rebuild itself. You cannot receive what life wants to give you if your hands are always busy grabbing at what you already have. Every great thinker, leader, and creator in history had moments of sacred pause, moments when they allowed stillness to reorganize their mind, restore their spirit, and realign their direction. You too need that pause. You need to learn that doing nothing is not wasting time. It's inviting clarity. So take a breath. Let the chaos outside keep spinning. Let the world think you're unproductive for a moment, because what's forming inside you during that silence is not failure, it's focus. And when you finally move again, you'll move with power, not panic. Doing nothing isn't giving up. It's preparing for the right thing to begin. The modern world rewards motion. You're praised when you're busy, admired when you're exhausted, respected when you're constantly on the move. People post pictures of sleepless nights and call it hustle. They show off their schedules like battle scars, proof that they're fighting for their dreams. But deep down, they're not fighting for dreams. They're running from silence. Because silence is terrifying. When the world grows quiet, all the noise you've buried inside begins to surface. The doubts you've ignored, the fears you've disguised as ambition, the memories you've refused to heal, they all begin to speak at once. That's why so many people can't sit still. Doing nothing forces you to meet yourself. You check your phone for the 100th time, not because you're expecting something important, but because the stillness feels unbearable. You fill your day with meaningless tasks, not because they matter, but because they distract. And each small distraction pulls you further away from yourself, the real you. But here's the paradox. You can't hear divine direction while your mind is loud. You can't receive guidance when your inner world is crowded with anxiety and noise. Norman Vincent Peale understood this deeply when he wrote, "The trouble with most of us is that we would rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. That criticism is often silence, the mirror moment that shows you what you don't want to see. When you do nothing, your mind doesn't actually stop working. It starts sorting, aligning, clearing space. The chaos begins to settle like dust in still air. Suddenly you start to see patterns, why you react the way you do, why certain people drain your energy, why you've been chasing validation instead of peace. You begin to understand that overactivity has been your shield. It protected you from stillness because stillness feels like vulnerability. But what if that vulnerability is where wisdom lives? What if your constant motion has kept you trapped in the illusion of progress, chasing new beginnings while never finishing the healing of your last ending? Look around you. The trees don't force themselves to grow. The ocean doesn't strain to make waves. Nature understands the rhythm of rest and creation. Yet, we, the most intelligent beings on earth, have forgotten how to pause without guilt. We've confused stillness with stagnation, rest with weakness. The mind needs silence like lungs need air. Without moments of stillness, your thoughts become suffocating. They loop, they collide, they replay every fear and failure until you mistake noise for life. That's why meditation feels strange at first. It's like opening a window in a room that's been sealed for years. The fresh air feels uncomfortable, almost painful. But then you breathe again, and in that breath, something powerful happens. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness beneath them, the one who watches, listens, and decides what deserves attention. The more you rest in that awareness, the less the noise controls you. You begin to see how much of your life was shaped by unconscious reaction, rushing because others rushed, worrying because others worried, striving because you feared stillness meant failure. But what if stillness is success in disguise? What if your next breakthrough is waiting in the pause you keep avoiding? The great artists, inventors, and thinkers who changed the world all understood this secret rhythm. Beethoven composed after long silent walk. Einstein's theories emerged during moments of quiet observation. Norman Vincent Peale's timeless principles of positive thinking were not born in chaos. They were born in contemplation. The lesson is simple, but hard to practice. You don't need to fill every second. You don't need to chase every thought. You don't need to prove your worth through activity. The truest productivity begins when you learn how to be still, when you trust that clarity grows best in silence. So the next time you find yourself in a quiet room, don't reach for your phone. Don't rush to fix, respond, or move. Just breathe. Let the discomfort rise. Let it talk. Let it pass. In that nothingness, your soul begins to speak in a voice softer but truer than the world's applause. Because in the end, silence isn't empty. It's full of answers you've been too busy to hear. There's a kind of strength that can't be measured by effort. A quiet strength that grows in silence, not in struggle. You've felt it before, though maybe you didn't recognize it. It's that moment after you've cried and suddenly feel calm. It's the deep breath that arrives after chaos. The soft relief that whispers, "You're still here." That's not weakness. That's renewal. We live in an age where exhaustion is worn like a medal. People brag about how little they sleep, how much they've accomplished, how busy they are. But being constantly in motion isn't power, it's panic, disguised as purpose. When your mind never stops running, it burns fuel faster than your body can restore it. The more you chase, the emptier you feel. Norman Vincent Peale once wrote, "When every physical and mental resource is focused, one's power to solve a problem multiplies tremendously." But you can't focus if you're scattered. You can't channel strength if your energy is leaking into 1,000 unfinished thoughts. That's why stillness matters, because it gathers you. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the presence of awareness. When you stop, your energy begins to collect itself again. Every cell, every thought, every breath starts to align. That's when creativity awakens, not through effort, but through openness. You start to receive inspiration instead of chasing it. You feel guided instead of lost. You see, the human mind is like a lake. When you're constantly moving, your thoughts stir the surface into waves. You can't see what's beneath, but when you let the surface grow still, the water becomes clear. You can finally see the depth, your fears, your dreams, your true desires. Stillness gives you access to your own wisdom, and that wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. It arrives when you're not forcing outcomes or fighting time. In that pause, your intuition, that small inner voice, begins to speak louder than your worries. It tells you what to let go of. It shows you who you are when you're not trying to impress anyone. Stillness becomes a form of prayer. It's how you reconnect to the source, whatever you call it, God, life, love, consciousness. You stop begging for answers and start listening for guidance. You realize that the energy you've been chasing outside has always been waiting within, but it takes courage to stop. Because when you slow down, the truth catches up. You'll notice the fatigue you've ignored, the relationships that drain you, the dreams that no longer fit the person you've become. You'll see the cost of pretending to have it all together. Stillness doesn't just recharge you, it reveals you. And that's why many people fear it. They'd rather stay tired than face themselves. They'd rather keep running than risk being still and honest. But if you can endure that first wave of discomfort, something miraculous happens. Peace begins to grow where panic once lived. Your mind, no longer suffocating under the pressure to perform, begins to repair itself. The nervous system resets. Thoughts slow down. The constant self-criticism loses its grip. The body heals faster. Your heart feels lighter. Slowly, quietly, you begin to feel alive again. Not because you're achieving, but because you're finally being. There's a story about a man who once went to a wise teacher and said, "I can't find peace. My mind won't stop thinking. I've tried everything." The teacher smiled and said, "That's the problem. You're trying. Stop trying." The man frowned. "But if I don't try, I'll do nothing." The teacher replied, "Exactly. And in that nothing, peace will find you." Stillness doesn't demand effort. It demands surrender. It asks you to stop forcing life to move according to your will and instead to trust its rhythm, to let things unfold rather than unravel them. That's where real power hides, not in control but in alignment. When you embrace this truth, your entire energy shifts. You stop chasing validation. You stop comparing timelines. You no longer panic when things slow down because you know that stillness isn't the end. It's the sacred space before renewal. The energy hidden in doing nothing is not passive, it's restorative. It's the invisible moment when the seed germinates underground, when the body rebuilds during sleep, when ideas form in silence before words are spoken. So if you ever feel lost, tired, or uninspired, stop moving. Sit with yourself. Let your thoughts crash and settle. Don't run from the stillness. Let it cleanse you. Because that's where strength grows. Quietly, invisibly, patiently. And one day when you rise again, people will ask how you found such calm power. You'll smile because you'll know the answer. You earned it in the silence no one saw. Something happens when you finally allow yourself to stop. The world doesn't end. The sky doesn't fall. What ends instead is your illusion, the belief that your value depends on your velocity. In the beginning, doing nothing feels like losing control. You keep glancing at the clock. You feel guilty for not answering messages, not producing, not planning. You mistake calm for emptiness. But as time passes, something remarkable begins to happen. Your inner lens starts to clear. You begin to see differently. Norman Vincent Peale often said that change your thoughts and you change your world. But what he didn't always explain is that stillness is the soil where those new thoughts grow. You can't plant seeds in shaking hands. You can't change your world until your mind stops trembling long enough to see it clearly. When you rest, the fog lifts. You begin to notice things you missed. The warmth of morning light. The way your breathing slows when you're not performing. The quiet beauty of doing something simply because you love it. These small moments start to rebuild your sense of meaning. You realize life isn't a race, it's a rhythm. You've been taught to measure your worth through milestones. The promotion, the title, the number of followers, the perfect relationship. But stillness reveals a deeper truth. The value of your life is not found in what you collect, but in what you connect with. You can own the world and still feel empty if you've lost connection with your soul. When you do nothing, you begin to see how much of your striving came from fear. Fear of falling behind, fear of being forgotten, fear of being average. But those fears start to dissolve in silence because silence doesn't care who's first. In silence, there's no competition, no comparison, there's only presence. And presence, real unfiltered awareness. is the greatest wealth a human being can possess. This shift is subtle but profound. Suddenly, you no longer feel the urge to prove yourself. You begin to enjoy simple things again, not as distractions, but as expressions of gratitude. A walk becomes meditation. A meal becomes prayer. Conversations become deeper because you're not half thinking about what comes next. Stillness changes how you see others too. You start noticing how many people are trapped in the same loop you once were, racing without rest, succeeding without satisfaction. You feel compassion, not competition. You stop judging people's pace because you understand everyone's running from something they haven't yet made peace with. And in that understanding, humility blooms. You stop demanding from life and start listening to it. You realize that patience isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You can't rush peace. You can't force clarity. You can only make space for them to arrive. Doing nothing gives you the ability to see the invisible. You begin to sense timing, the way opportunities unfold when you stop pushing. You feel guided rather than desperate. You notice synchronicities, small coincidences that seem too perfect to be random. That's the universe's way of whispering. See, you don't always have to chase. Sometimes you just have to align. Stillness becomes the lens that reframes everything. Success no longer means constant motion. It means harmony. Productivity is no longer about doing more. It's about doing what matters. You start asking different questions. Not how much can I accomplish, but how much peace can I sustain? And slowly you realize something extraordinary. The more you let go, the more life begins to flow. Opportunities appear. But now you choose with clarity. People come and go, but now you connect with sincerity. Challenges arise, but you meet them with calm instead of chaos. That's the reward no one talks about. The invisible shift from frantic survival to peaceful creation. In stillness, your relationship with yourself heals too. You stop trying to fix who you are and start honoring who you've become. You understand that your flaws are not failures, they're fingerprints of your humanity. You forgive yourself for the years spent rushing, for the choices made in fear, for the dreams postponed. Norman Vincent Peale taught the power of belief, but belief doesn't grow in noise. It grows in quiet confidence, in the calm certainty that you are guided by something wiser than worry. Doing nothing helps you rediscover that confidence. It reminds you that faith is not always loud. Sometimes it's just the decision to stop fighting and trust the process. And as your perspective transforms, so does your energy. You begin to attract peace instead of chaos, understanding instead of conflict, purpose instead of pressure. People will notice the change but won't know where it came from. You'll smile because you'll know it came from the silence you once feared. Stillness didn't just give you rest, it gave you vision. And once you've seen life through that lens, you can never go back to blindness. Once you've tasted the power of stillness, you start to notice how fragile the noise really is. The chaos of the world doesn't disappear, it simply loses its authority over you. The phone still rings, deadlines still exist, people still rush. But inside you, something has shifted. You no longer react like before. You respond from a deeper place. That's the hidden strength of doing nothing. It's not about escaping life. It's about returning to it, renewed, centered, and clear. The pause becomes your power. Norman Vincent Peale often reminded people that the trouble with most of us is that we would rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. In silence, you learn to stop needing either. You no longer rely on external validation to know your worth. The world can praise you or ignore you. Your peace remains untouched. That's real freedom. But how do you turn this peace into practice? How do you live in the world without being consumed by it? The answer is rhythm. Stillness isn't meant to replace action, it's meant to prepare it. You move, then pause. You speak, then listen. You give, then refill. Like breathing. Inhale, exhale. Rest is not the opposite of effort. It's what gives effort its direction. Start small. Before every major decision, pause. Even 5 minutes of silence can shift the outcome of your day. When your emotions flare up, don't rush to respond. Step back, breathe. Doing nothing for a moment doesn't mean you're avoiding the problem. It means you're allowing clarity to lead instead of impulse. Over time, this discipline becomes your quiet armor. The more you practice stillness, the less the world's chaos controls you. When others panic, you pause. When others react, you reflect. You begin to realize that every second of silence buys you wisdom, and wisdom is far more valuable than speed. There's a calmness that grows when you stop fighting every wave. You begin to float instead of drown. Life will still bring storms, health challenges, heartbreaks, uncertainty, but you'll meet them with steady eyes. You'll learn that peace is not the absence of difficulty, it's the mastery of response. Doing nothing also trains your faith, because in silence, you surrender the illusion of control. You stop trying to force solutions and start trusting timing. You learn that not every unanswered question means failure. Sometimes it means preparation. You may not see what's forming behind the curtain of your stillness, but something always is. Think of a seed planted in the earth. It looks like nothing is happening. It's buried, unseen, silent. But beneath the soil, life is rearranging itself. Roots are forming. Direction is building. Strength is gathering. The moment it breaks through the surface, people call it growth. But growth began in the unseen stillness long before. The same is true for you. When you stop forcing and start trusting, your energy roots itself deeper. Your creativity, intuition, and courage all begin to grow from that soil of stillness. That's how you begin making better decisions, not from pressure, but from peace. Eventually, doing nothing becomes a form of active strength. It teaches restraint in moments of anger, patience in times of delay, grace when things don't go your way. It keeps you from saying words you can't take back. It gives you time to see situations clearly before they define you. And with time, that calm becomes contagious. People feel safer around you. They sense something stable in your energy. You become the quiet presence in a loud room. Not because you're indifferent, but because you've mastered yourself. You begin to live differently. You wake without anxiety about what must be achieved. You start your day grounded, knowing that the most productive thing you can do is to stay aligned with peace. You understand that success doesn't belong to the fastest, but to the most focused. And focus is born in stillness. This kind of living changes your relationships too. You stop demanding others to fill your emptiness. You stop confusing chaos with passion. You start listening, truly listening to the people you love. Your patience deepens, your words soften, your empathy strengthens. Doing nothing, you discover, allows you to see people instead of merely reacting to them. Stillness also reveals the difference between noise and voice, between the world's opinions and your soul's truth. You'll begin to discern what's yours to carry and what's not. You'll realize that not every invitation deserves your energy. Not every argument deserves your response. Not every opportunity deserves your peace. Silence becomes the filter that keeps your life clean. Norman Vincent Peale's philosophy wasn't about blind optimism. It was about inner mastery. The faith that when your mind is aligned with peace, life itself begins to cooperate with you. Doing nothing is how you return to that alignment every time the world tries to pull you out of it. And perhaps the most beautiful part, you start to see that you were never behind. Life was never punishing you. You were simply being invited to pause, to remember who you are beneath all the movement. So the next time you find yourself rushing without reason, stop, close your eyes, let stillness hold you like an old friend. Because within that silence, you'll find not emptiness, but everything you've been looking for. There comes a moment, after the noise fades, when you realize you no longer need to chase what you once thought you couldn't live without. The emails, the opinions, the deadlines, they still exist, but they no longer define the rhythm of your heart. You've learned that peace is not something you earn, it's something you allow. That's the hidden reward of doing nothing. It's not success as the world defines it. It's the deep, steady joy that grows when you stop fighting life and start flowing with it. You discover that the best things you've ever received came not from effort, but from alignment. The moment you released control, something greater began to move on your behalf. Stillness shows you that what you were chasing was never outside of you. It was always waiting within. The love you sought from others was your own unexpressed kindness. The validation you begged for was the reflection of a peace you had forgotten to feel. The freedom you desired was already in your breath, hiding beneath the constant noise. Doing nothing teaches you that time is not an enemy. Every pause, every delay, every not yet has meaning. Life isn't punishing you by making you wait. It's protecting you until you're ready. The doors that stay closed during your silence are the ones that would have led you away from your purpose. When you stop rushing, you start seeing divine timing everywhere. In the unexpected phone call, the canceled plan that led to a better encounter, the quiet evening that birthed the life-changing idea, the rhythm of life begins to feel guided, almost poetic. You realize that what once felt like emptiness was actually preparation. Norman Vincent Peale believed that a positive mind is a creative force, that faith isn't just a belief, it's a vibration. Doing nothing restores that vibration. It clears the mental clutter that blocks inspiration. It turns faith from a word into an experience. You stop saying, "I hope it works out," and start feeling that it already is. This stillness also brings a new kind of confidence, one that doesn't shout, doesn't need to prove, doesn't seek the crowd. You walk slower but with purpose. You speak less but your words carry weight. You smile without reason because peace no longer depends on circumstance. That's the quiet authority of a mind at rest. And when life tests you, because it will, you don't collapse like before. You return to silence. You breathe. You remember that storms pass faster when you don't fight the wind. You've learned to trust what can't be seen, that life's pauses are not punishments, they are alignments. Every time you do nothing, something within you strengthens. Then one day you look back and realize that stillness didn't make you weaker, it made you wise. You begin to see how every moment of quiet gave birth to clarity, how every pause created space for peace to grow root. You no longer measure your life by how much you've done, but by how deeply you've lived. And that right there is the reward. You become fully alive. You feel time differently. You see people with more compassion. You speak slower because you finally mean what you said. You stop apologizing for resting, for protecting your energy, for choosing peace over chaos. You start living not from obligation, but from overflow. The hidden reward of doing nothing is not idleness, it's awakening. It's realizing that life is not waiting for you to perform, it's waiting for you to be present. So if today feels slow, if your plans are on pause, if silence scares you, take it as a sign that life is inviting you inward. Sit with yourself, feel the stillness, let it rearrange you. Trust that what looks like nothing is often where everything begins. And when you rise again, rise softly, with calm eyes and steady heart, because now you understand what most never will. Doing nothing doesn't mean you're losing time. It means time has finally found you.